Good evening again, everyone. My name is Melissa Raspberry, and I work for the American Institutes for Research. And we have the honor and pleasure of hosting and facilitating the CS for All Teachers community. We're so glad that you joined us this evening for this conversation about a great way to build community and promote CS diversity through our CS Honors Society chapter. We are so happy that one of our community ambassadors, Brenda Burmeister, is going to be leading the charge for us tonight. I will be here in the background and can help to support if there are any technical issues that you're having. We do encourage you to get connected to your audio. We have a small but mighty group here with us, so there's plenty of time, and there's going to be plenty of time and opportunity for some great question and answers. We're also recording this session for those who are unable to join us live. But if you do have a problem and you're unable to get your audio connected, let me know in the chat box, and I'll help to see if I can figure it out for you. You also may use that chat throughout to ask questions as our presenters go along, and we'll make sure those get answered in the process. But with that, I'm going to turn things over to Brenda, and she's going to take things from here. Thanks so much, everyone. Go ahead, Brenda.
Hello. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I'm really grateful for all of you to come here and learn about building community and promoting CS diversity at your high school. I am a high school computer science and internship coordinator here in San Antonio, Texas, and I just completed my first year as a sponsor of Computer Science Honor Society. Before we get started, I just want to sort of take a temperature check of everyone here. Thank you those who have joined us. So I'm going to start a poll. I'm going to ask Melissa to bring up the poll. Just to ask sort of what is your experience level with Computer Science Honor Society? We just want to know where everybody's sort of at. And there's no submit on the poll. You just need to click the little bullet. So I've never heard of Computer Science Honor Society before. I've heard about it maybe at a conference. I know that's where I learned about it first. I know a fellow teacher who is a CSHS sponsor or advisor, or I know another school that has a CSHS chapter, or you already are an expert faculty advisor sponsor. So I'm going to go ahead and vote myself. You can see, there we go. All right. So most of us here have heard about it. We've maybe at a conference and stuff. I'm really grateful you came here tonight to sort of learn more about it. We're going to go ahead and go back to the slides. Awesome. Thank you. I'd like to introduce Katherine Wyman. She is she's my co-host tonight. She has had tremendous success starting and maintaining a Computer Science Honor Society. She's a teacher at Xavier College Preparatory in Phoenix, Arizona. She teaches computer programming, AP Computer Science, AP Computer Science Principles. So quite a list there. But among her many awards, she's also been recognized by NC-WIT for her work towards CS equity with 4 different awards over the years. She's also on the Board of Trustees Technology Committee at Xavier College Preparatory, the co-founder of Girls Have It Day, moderator of engineering projects and community service, founder of Student Tech Advisors, and peer mentor in the Lighthouse course to broaden participation in computer science. So welcome, Katherine. Thank you so much for joining us tonight to share your expertise and your experience.
Thank you, Brenda. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you to the people who are attending. I love talking about Computer Science Honor Society and computer science. My calling is to engage girls in computer science because I teach at a girls' school. Xavier is a urban school of about 1,200 for girls in grades 9 through 12. I first heard about Computer Science Honor Society at the AP reading a few years ago. Buffy Hawley started the Computer Science Honor Society in Virginia as part of Code VA, and she spoke very passionately at an evening session at the reading about Computer Science Honor Society and why we should get a Computer Science Honor Society chapter at our school. I was sold after hearing her pitch, and I went back to Phoenix, and in the new school year, I talked to the principal about bringing a Computer Science Honor Society chapter to our school. And initially, she was supportive, and I think the reason behind that, I've been at Xavier now since 2008, and I never squander an opportunity to talk about the need of computer science and computer science education. So I've been passionately pushing about why it's important, using those resources from NCWIT. NCWIT has great resources about why computer science education is important. And because of that, I've had a lot of great support from the principal and from the community. In fact, maybe it was 8 years ago, the principal turned to me in a meeting and said, "Do you think we ought to make programming a graduation requirement?" And that's not what the meeting was about, and you could have knocked me off my chair, but I said yes. And so we've had it as a graduation requirement at Xavier now for at least 5 years. But at any rate, I digress. Back to Computer Science Honor Society. The principal said, "I can't pay you for this." And I said, "It doesn't matter. It's the right thing to do." And here's why I think Computer Science Honor Society is the right thing to do. The values are equity, service, and excellence. And if we can live those values through computer science education of equity, service, and excellence, we are serving our students. Every Computer Science Honor Society has a service requirement. Students are required to complete a certain number of hours of service that is not double dipped. They can't apply the same hours for NHS and CSHS and any other service, community service requirement. They are not, you can't double dip them, I think is the official term. Students have to have taken a computer science course. There needs to be a GPA requirement, and they have to have a faculty advisor. So armed with those requirements, service requirement, CS course, GPA requirement, and a faculty advisor, with permission from the principal, I set about to starting our chapter. I imagine that everyone listening to this is just as busy as I am as a high school teacher, and it took a while for me to make it a priority because there was a lot of other stuff going on. It was announced that CSHS was moving from management oversight from Code VA to the Computer Science Teachers Association, and I had already done a certain amount of work getting the chapter started with Code VA, so I wanted to finish the deal and not wait for this blackout period as it rolled over to CSTA. So that provided enough incentive for me to get really busy. And I put out, here, let's go to the next slide. I put out the call to the students, all current sophomores and juniors, because I knew that we weren't going to get started until the next school year. So I invited all juniors and sophomores. All of them had taken the computer science course because it's a graduation requirement. And if they had at least a B in that course, a 3.2 GPA, and were willing to do the service and had no serious offenses with the dean's office, then they could apply for membership in Computer Science Honor Society. We had 107 girls apply. From that group, we put out a call to get officers who wanted to run for office. I knew I needed those officers to help me plan the induction ceremony, to get the program together, to get it off the ground before we actually inducted members. So we put out a call to have girls apply to be officers. From that list of students who wanted to be officers, we put it out to a vote. From the voting, the top vote getters were then invited to come in for an interview. I was the moderator, and there was no co-moderator, so I got another teacher at the school. The physics teacher, full disclosure, happens to be my husband. I sit in on the interviews with me so that we would just have another voice, another set of ears, another person taking notes. So we interviewed all of the top vote getters for the officer positions. We want, and we still do that. That was our first year, and we're going to keep that tradition going because we want officers who are going to represent the esteem with which we hold the Computer Science Honor Society. We want officers who are going to work hard and bring the dignity to the position that is required. So we think that interview also helps the students take it seriously and get practice interviewing. Many of them want to go to elite colleges. There might be an interview requirement. It's good experience. We had a student, there's a scholarship locally that requires a rigorous interview process, and so we realized through that how important that the ability to have practice doing interviews is. We've named our Computer Science Honor Society after Sister Mary Kenneth Keller, whose picture you can see on the screen. She was from the same order of nuns that started Xavier in 1943. She also was the first person to get a PhD in computer science from the University of Wisconsin in Madison. I think it was 1965. And we wanted to honor her by naming our chapter after her. Her picture, this picture the students are holding, is hand pixelated. You can't tell from here, but there was a student in 2013 who sketched each of those teeny little squares. She wanted to make it look like it was computerized. She wanted to make it look like it was digitized, but that's a hand-drawn picture, which is kind of fun. It hangs in our lab, and it's our inspiration every day. You think about the challenges Sister Mary Kenneth Keller faced getting a PhD in computer science back then in 1965. Some pictures of her you can find online show this sea of white men in suits, and then off to the side we've got this nun in a habit. So it's kind of fun to be able to honor her by naming our society after her. I think that it's important to find what makes your school special. Find what is unique about your school culture and what you can tie Computer Science Honor Society to. We can tie our school culture with the Sisters of Charity of the Blessed Virgin Mary with Sister Mary Kenneth Keller, and it's a great thing because it gives us this lodestar, if you will, that everything points to. This is our legacy. So whatever it is that makes your school special, what about your culture can you pull out and tie to Computer Science Honor Society? I believe in always telling the story. Always do not squander an opportunity to talk about the importance of computer science education. And we try to do that whenever we can. Let's see. So here's our membership from last year. We inducted 107 members last August. And for this year, for the coming school year, we've got 133 members. So we are growing. Computer Science Honor Society gives opportunities for leadership. Not only the students who are holding officer positions, but all of the students have an opportunity to step up and be a leader, to step up and be a leader in the community, to step up and be of service to others. We have several events throughout the year: Computer Science Education Week, Cybersecurity Awareness Week, Sister Mary Kenneth Keller's birthday, which is December 17th. We have Girls Have It Day, which I'll talk about in a little bit, and camp. We offer tutoring for girls who are in the programming class. We staff 18 shifts a week. Computer Science Honor Society staff these tutoring shifts every week. It's one of the ways they can get their hours. And sometimes we have more than one tutor available at a time. It can get a little crowded in the lab with students asking questions. And the tutors, the near-peer tutoring is a model that works. If a student can ask a question of someone who's just a little bit older, a little bit farther down the path, it's very helpful to them. They're less intimidating. Students can come to me and ask for help, but some students find that intimidating to go to the authority figure and ask for help. So this model of near-peer tutoring works very, very well. We've also got Computer Science Honor Society members who are currently staffing our new student technology orientation. Every year in August, when our freshmen come on campus, we have a session of their first day that's devoted to using the technology at Xavier. How do I access my email? How do I log into Canvas? How do I do this? How do I do that? But this year, it became apparent to me that we needed to look at that differently. We are planning to start school in August. The state of Arizona, which is where we are, has announced that schools will open in August. But historically, when you look 100 years ago at the Spanish flu pandemic, schools in Arizona closed 3 separate times. So I think that my personal feeling is that it's important to be prepared for the unexpected. And so I'm sorry, I looked at the chat window by mistake. So it's important that we prepare for the unexpected. And as a result, I reached out to the Computer Science Honor Society and I said, who wants to help me with this? Who's interested in planning what our new student technology orientation is going to look like? There are, I think, 7 students who stepped up and said, I want to try that. We've made some videos. We did some screen captures. We've partnered. We said, if your last name starts with A or B, contact this student. If they're C or D, contact that student, and so forth. I went through the list of incoming students and divided up the alphabet, so each of these 7 students has about the same number that she's going to help. And we sent out all the videos to parents and to incoming students so they can work through the orientation online. So far, that was last week, we just started this. Feedback is really good. But what impresses me about these Computer Science Honor Society students is their willingness to try something new. Their willingness to say, yeah, I want to try that, and to step up and to do it. Let's take a look at what's next. Let me talk about a year what our year looks like. In August, we collect the annual dues. The reason we don't do it earlier, we advertised for membership the previous spring. We've already identified these 133 students who are going to be members next year, but we don't collect the dues because of the fiscal calendar of our school. So we wait and do that in August. We prepare for the induction ceremony. The student officers help do that. They drive that bus. They do most of it. And Serena, a student who's going to talk in a little bit, she was the president last year and helped plan that. She's hopefully going to give a speech at this year's induction. The students plan it, the students get behind it, and it's fabulous. We have our first membership meeting in September. We hold 4 membership meetings throughout the year. With 133 members, I think 4 is good, 1 per quarter. We can have smaller committee meetings at different times, and we do, but a whole membership meeting quarterly seems to work pretty well. We have guest speakers come in. We've had a guest speaker come in who was a friend of Sister Mary Kenneth Keller. That was kind of fun. She spoke about her. Sister Mary Kenneth Keller has passed, but she still has some friends around who came in and talked to us. We have people from industry. At our last membership meeting, we had a Xavier alum who currently works for Snapchat. And she came in and talked about what it's like to be a software engineer at Snapchat. And it was very inspiring, talking about being persistent and sticking with college and trying to find your calling. It's great. In October, we celebrate Cybersecurity Awareness Month. We have some lunchtime activities. The girls go on the announcements, some hoopla. In December, we have our second membership meeting and celebrate Computer Science Education Week. If you're not a part of that, I strongly encourage you to consider celebrating Computer Science Education Week. We had a cakewalk where we celebrated Sister Mary Kenneth Keller's birthday at the same time, and it was a lot of fun. In February, we have our third all-membership meeting, and we have Girls Have a Day. Girls Have a Day welcomes about 300 middle school girls to campus, where they engage in hands-on science, technology, engineering, art, and math activities, hosted mostly by members of the Computer Science Honor Society. We do have some other students participate with us, freshmen and sophomores who aren't yet eligible for CSHS, but there were about almost 200 high school girls this year who designed, developed, and delivered hands-on STEAM activities for our middle school girlfriends. And the reason that we do that is because girls have equal interest as boys in 6th grade in science, technology, engineering, and math, and by 9th grade, it's gone. So we want to make sure that we reach those middle school girls and inspire them to work harder in school while they still have some interest. Let's stoke those fires and keep them going, because by the time they get to high school, it's too late. And that's not a recruiting event for us. We are a private high school, but that is not a recruiting event for us. We do not collect contact information on the middle school girls. We do it because we want to encourage them to work harder in school, regardless of where they want to go to high school. We make a deliberate effort to reach girls in Title I schools Jamie Cassett from Google, maybe some of you have heard of him. He's the education evangelist with Google. He says that education is the pathway out of poverty, and we believe that. And if equity and service are part of our raison d'etre, if they are part of the reasons that we're doing this, we need to reach those girls at Title I school. We need to encourage them to work harder in school, because if they do, they're going to be better prepared to go to college. And if they're able to go to college, they stand an opportunity to have different economic circumstances than they currently are in. In March, we invite all students to apply for all current sophomores and juniors to apply for membership. I go on the announcements several times. I send emails to the entire student body, all the sophomores and juniors. I try to make sure I reach all of them, because invariably in August, somebody's going to come up to me and say, I've never heard of Computer Science Honor Society, but my friend, sister, classmate is joining, and I'd really like to join. We don't take people in August. We identify our new members in the previous spring, because it's just too hard. It's too hard to go through all that process. If we don't have a cutoff, it'll dribble on forever, and that is unsustainable for me as the moderator. It just doesn't work. So we've got to have a hard and fast deadline. So I try very hard to reach everybody the previous spring, so that we avoid that as much as possible in August. We have our final membership meeting in April. We identify who our new members are going to be, and I invite them to accept, and they accept, and that is how I know who I can plan on paying dues in August. And then we wrap up our community service in May. We have some stuff going on over the summer. As I previously mentioned, the new student technology orientation. We also have Girls Have It Camp, which is like Girls Have It Day, but it's a week long. It used to be, well, hopefully it'll be again, but in the past, we've had that on campus for a week with Computer Science Honor Society members being counselors. This year, we've gone online. I, again, put out the call to the students. See, my first thinking was, we've got to cancel camp, because due to the pandemic, we can't organize. We can't meet on campus. But then I realized that was a cop-out, and we need to be creative, and we need to be able to reach girls and keep them engaged over the summer. A lot of students don't have their normal summer opportunities. A lot of things have gotten canceled. So I reached out to the Computer Science Honor Society, and I said, who wants to help me think about what this would look like? This was back in, I think it was April, or early April. Who wants to help me think about what this is going to look like? I expected 5 or 6 girls. I got 22. And I cut off, I said you can reply by, I think it was Friday. By Wednesday, I had 22, and I shut down the form, because if you get too many, it's unwieldy, it's unmanageable. So of these 22, 16 have stuck with it and have made videos of experiments. We've got a Twitter that they're posting videos on Twitter to hopefully inspire other girls to try home experiments. We say they've got to be safe. We don't want people lighting stuff on fire or using sharp objects, because they're middle schoolers. We wanted to design activities that would use common household products, so nobody would have to buy anything new. The girls and I discussed sending kits of stuff so we could send supplies for various experiments. We talked about sending T-shirts and sending swag and goodie bags. But at the end of the day, we decided not to send anything in advance, but to send on the back end. And that way, if we're back in school in August, the girls can help me assemble goodie bags. I've always got my hand open for swag donations. If I know someone who's in sales, I say, hey, after your sales meeting, if you have any leftover branded volleyball or beach ball, beach balls or pens or whatever, I always have my hand open for donations. And as a result, I get some branded swag. The reason I mentioned the beach balls is I have a bunch of, or I had, we've given them all away now, President's Club, 2016, and they were dated and they were no longer of use to the company, but certainly of use to us. We can use that swag. So I have some cabinets full of swag at school, and we're going to send out some goodie bags to our campers in August. The campers have a game board that they can fill out. think about the library reading program and how if you read the book, you get the thing colored in, and then you get a sticker or a flashlight or whatever at certain milestones. That's kind of the model we're following with our camp. You can tell how passionate I am about it. At this point, I want to introduce from the student perspective, who can talk about the benefits of the Computer Science Honor Society as a student. I want to introduce Serena Turner. Serena is the outgoing president of the Sister Mary Kenneth Keller BVM chapter of the Computer Science Honor Society, and she's been a fantastic leader this first year. Serena just finished AP Computer Science A. She was one of the people who, when she came to submit the second question, it didn't take it, so she's got to do it again tomorrow, which is a real testament to her persistence, and she is fabulous. So with no further ado, Serena, can you talk about the student perspective, please?
Thank you, Mrs. Wyman. Hi, I'm Serena Turner, like she said, and as Ms. Wyman mentioned, I'm very fortunate to have been president of our Computer Science Honor Society at Xavier. This society has allowed me many opportunities to get involved with people also interested in computer science. So in fact, before this club started, I didn't really know what computer science was. I didn't really have that strong of an interest. But through this, I've decided that I actually want to pursue it in college and possibly as a career. This society has brought me closer to computer science, and I've really understood what it is to be in the computer science field and how to make an impact on our world. Our CSHS has provided opportunities for service and leadership, like Ms. Wyman has stated. Our society contributed over 1,000 hours for the good of the computer science field, and so this is really great. We got to give back to our community this year. We also provided so many different leadership opportunities. We had the officers and we had the chairs for all the different committees. So by doing this leadership and getting these skills now, consequently, we'll better prepare us for college and the workforce ahead of us. So I thought this was great to learn leadership opportunities now as a student. Then lastly, we provide a lot of high energy. I'm going to share a quick story. We have 8th graders come and shadow us, and one of the 8th grade shadows, she was shadowing a current Xavier student, and the current Xavier student was folding Girls Have It Day t-shirts to get ready for the swag bags, like Ms. Wyman mentioned. And after her day of shadowing, she told us that she could really tell the energy of CSHS and see that this was a really cool atmosphere that we are growing here. And so this just shows, even from an outsider perspective who's not a part of Xavier or CSHS, she could tell the energy and the impact that we're making through this club. So that's really cool to know that our energy is not only felt within Xavier, but outside of Xavier as well. So overall, CSHS has helped better myself, the members in CSHS, the students of Xavier, but then the community as a whole. This is a lasting impact, and I'm really grateful to have CSHS. Thank you.
Thank you, Serena. Appreciate that very much. There is a question. What committees do you include in your Computer Science Honor Society? We have committees for each of our special events, like Girls Have It Day has a committee. And just a word about Girls Have It Day. I started that with a colleague in 2008. My colleague came to me and said, I've been sitting in this idea, middle school girls losing interest. What do you think? And I thought it was great. I said, let's go talk to the principal. It was my first week on the job. And we started it, and everything was fabulous. But as time went by, we got tired. We tried to make some changes to address some feedback, and as a result, we had declining numbers, and we thought, you know what, its time has come. We're going to let this go. So we didn't do it last year. In October, one of the Computer Science Honor Society members came to me and said, Mrs. Wyman, why don't we do Girls Have It Day anymore? And I said, oh, it's so much work and blah, 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 blah. And she said, that's the best thing we do here. And I said, okay, well, we can ask the principal to bring it back, but you've got to do the work because I'm busy. And she did. It was fabulous. Serena, how many girls were on that committee? A dozen?
We had about 10 girls, yeah.
10 girls. And they worked so hard. It was fabulous. Of course, I still had to do POs and ordering and work requests for the maintenance office, but the girls did the heavy lifting, and it was great. So how many committees? There's a committee for the tech tutors. There's a committee for the new student technology orientation. There's a committee for Girls Have It Day and Girls Have It Camp. So any of the special events that we do will be a committee. We plan to do, we don't have a good name for it yet, but Elder Habit Day. We want to teach our grandparents how to use technology safely, which I joke gets down to, don't click that. But we want to teach them how to use their phones, how to be safe on the internet. Of course, given our current circumstances with the pandemic, that's a little bit on hold, but I think that our current circumstances also highlight the need more than ever. So that's also going to be a committee. Let's see.
Serena, this is Brenda. I just wanted to ask you from a student perspective and involvement, what was the hardest thing about being the president of your chapter this last year?
I think the hardest thing, since it was our first year here at Xavier, was just getting everything established. Like, we didn't know how would we run meetings, like would we have certain conduct, like we were trying to follow kind of like Robert's Rules of Order, trying to make it like super professional, but just pretty much getting it all in place. So I recommend for people establishing one, to that first year, try and establish what you would like to do so that everybody following can follow those procedures. So like at meetings, we had like somebody always taking notes. We had, for me, the president, I'd come up with an agenda for each meeting and I'd send it out to everybody so they knew ahead of time. So just kind of getting those in place was probably the hardest challenge, but I definitely recommend it for everybody else.
Mm-hmm. And there's a comment in the chat about girls mentoring younger girls is vital for any CS and STEM club for girls, as it is genuine mentoring, and the research proves this, and I couldn't agree more. And I also think that it builds an expectation, and we have found that students, even before we started Computer Science Honor Society, when we were working on mentoring and Girls Habit Day, the high school girls working with the middle school girls, some girls go on to college and they do the same thing in college. We had a student go, I remember specifically to Gonzaga, and started a Girls Habit Day, I forget exactly what they called it, up there in Washington. We had another student go to Duke and get involved. They had some outreach and she got involved with that because she wanted to keep doing this near-peer mentoring. So it absolutely works, and I think that it builds that culture for when you get into the workplace. We've got to support, as women, we have to support one another. And I'm taking nothing away from the men. I'm just saying that there is a culture, a male culture there. So it's helpful to have an ally. It's helpful to have someone that is has a similar experience. So I think that mentoring is vital all the way along. Any other questions? Okay, let's keep going. Yes, go ahead.
I'm sorry, this is Melissa. So I have a question for Serena as well. What do you feel like that you have gained from this experience in the Computer Science Honor Society that stands out or is different from some of the other leadership roles that you've taken on?
I'd say the biggest benefit from the society was being with people also interested in computer science, or even if they weren't, getting people excited about it, because I've now grown such a great passion for computer science. It was fun to educate and have other people feel that same passion. So after we'd have some of the speakers at some of our meetings, people would come up to me and be like, oh my gosh, this is so cool, like computer science, there's so many different ways I can go with this, like I never knew this field was even out there. And especially being at an all-girls school, the women representation just really got me empowered. But just being with people like-minded or just motivating them was really cool to see in this society.
Awesome, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any others? Okay, so talking again, kind of looping about our community service, we have Girls Habit Day and camp, our Tech Buddies, which is the new student orientation, and tech tutors. We used to call it student tech advisors, but that's a lot. Tech tutors has a little better alliteration and slips off the tongue a little more easily. And the Elders Habit Day, which we're still working on the title, and it's kind of on hold right now. So those are specific ways that we are in community service, but we're always open to new ideas. A student came to me recently from Computer Science Honor Society, and I'm trying, over the summer, I'm really trying to keep in touch with my students. I'm not teaching a summer school class, but I feel like in these times, that's really important. And I had a student reach out to me just a few days ago and say, Mrs. Wyman, I really feel passionately that I want to do something to help the people who are suffering on the Navajo reservation. Here in Arizona, COVID-19 has had a devastating impact on the Navajo reservation. And so we had a Google Hangout and we talked about it. We looked at their website and discussed different ways that she could get involved. And she's off exploring some ideas about how she can use computer science to help the folks on the Navajo reservation. We don't have that figured out yet, but just it's something new. Yes, let's be open. Let's see how we might explore that. So we try to be open for new ways to be of service in the community. Some students coach robotics back at their middle school, which is great. So there are many ways beyond our walls to also get involved in service.
So we're just sorry.
Go ahead.
We're going to go ahead and take this moment and really just brainstorm together about sort of maybe community service projects that your students would be interested in. So if you could go ahead and bring up that chat pod, and it's going to give you a possibility to put in your own ideas about what your any community service projects that you've heard about that you want to utilize, or things that are needs that are specific to your community. Just kind of take a moment where each of us could get advice from each other. Melissa, do you want to bring up that chat pod? Oh, there we go. Okay, so everybody, if you see that on the left, that brainstorm pod here. I just wanted to take this moment so everybody could sort of play off each other's ideas and suggestions. Katherine and Serena definitely gave us so many ideas. Awesome. I love waiting here with bated breath, and I can see all of your attendees typing. I'm curious about your ideas. I just feel like there's so many creative ideas out there to sort of how to serve the community and in computer science. Sometimes it might feel a little tricky to do that in a way where you're really empowering the students, and Katherine's Computer Science is a great, Honor Society has done a great job of sort of putting that in the students' hands. So here in Fort Bend, Texas, hosting a Mentoring Girls Who Code, Technovation, the Congressional App Challenge. That's a really great idea. You're really leveraging some work out there that's already has sort of documentation, so you're not reinventing the wheel. It's there. Something that would be a great thing to do your first year. I know I got started in August and September, so we really had to just run with it. Naomi in Arizona as well, the coding student mentorship and leadership. That's an awesome idea. And that's really scalable too, of course. You know, you could do that once a week, once a month, one event, however, you know, the needs of your community or the ability or availability of your group. Women equity within STEM, that's a great idea. The Senior Citizen Tech Help. And I think there's the National Institute of Cybersecurity Institute, NICE. They actually have some published senior citizen cybersecurity books that you can get free and maybe, you know, take along and really utilize. That's awesome that you have a Senior Citizens Center. So we're going to go ahead and move out of the chat pod for brainstorming. Thank you so much for sharing those ideas. I really hope everybody feels encouraged and invigorated at different ideas. And one last thing we're going to talk about before we go to the questions is just recruitment. Now, like I said, so I transferred from the middle school to the high school level in late July. So I was starting at my high school last year in August, and one of the reasons I transferred or moved up was I really did want to start that Computer Science Honor Society. So Katherine gave us a really great year of planning, but I wasn't going to wait. And so I really had to do speed recruiting. And here's some of the things that I learned. Definitely recruit other students. Students really, get that peer influence. And so it's easiest and most, you just sort of leverage their passion and their interests. So I had students kind of pitch the idea in all the classes. I really highly recommend not just going to computer science class. I have an art degree. Art and computer science always crosses over, but us artists are always sort of forgotten in the computer science world. So of course that the science classes, the math classes. I just went to every single one possible to do that. I had the students design the flyer in Canva. Again, kind of having them sort of have that influence and interest so it looked more appealing than what I was going to create. Really asking, finding that one person that has that social capital already going on and having them sort of tap other students to invite them, doing a CS party, and again, having the food there, having the snacks and some activities, but then sort of doing the spiel for what would be great about Computer Science Honor Society. And then I asked other teachers in my whole school just really what students they saw that, had some interest in logic or math or puzzles or, just good at researching, that English teacher that knew somebody that was really good at researching. These are all sort of those skills that can cross over into computer science and really have that interest. And then I sent personal emails to those students. And I think, again, finding that way to sort of make the student realize that there's possibilities for them and that there's, a teacher that's looking out for them and noticing these things in them. And all of these are really great things that you can translate into virtual. I know we're all unsure right now if and when school's going to return. So you could email the students. You can send the snail mail. We all love getting something actually in our mailbox, and so it's extra special. Turning that CS party into something, a Zoom or a party. Getting the students your computer science students to do social media posts and interest in that and sort of really getting the groove going for that. So we are at the end here. We've got a couple minutes. We wanted to save some time for questions in general for all of us. I'm looking over the chat pod and making sure we haven't missed any questions.
Brenda, as you're doing that, I have a question that I'd like to ask, and that is to Katherine and to you, Brenda, too. If you were kind of looking back now, if you could do one thing differently when you were getting started, because it sounds like we have some folks here interested in doing that themselves, like getting a honor society up and running, so sort of what would be your biggest lesson learned or something that you might do differently if you had to do it all over again?
This is Kath. Oh, sorry. This is Katherine, just real quick. I think I wouldn't have taken a year to get out of the blocks. I had the support from the principal. It was just a matter of making it a priority. And I wish that I'd done it faster.
That's awesome. I think I would have wished one more month in there for me getting started. And I do see that somebody's noting that they're planning on starting in August. I think the difference of the way that I ran my year and the way that Katherine ran her year is we really focused on our community service project. I love the guests and stuff, but we did not have time to have that kind of reflective meetings. We only had 12 students. I did not have as many. not every student in my school does computer science, so that is one of the requirements of the Computer Science Honor Society. You have to have 1 year, and so I have a reduced amount of population that way. So it was really about having those meetings, and really making sure we did our computer science jam. Our students also have to do 25 other hours of volunteer work through the year. So again, we could not double dip, and so I wanted to make sure we were lined up to satisfy their community service hours. It was really hard to find time that everybody could meet. I kind of wish I'd given up on the everybody's going to come to this meeting and moved it more virtual actually sooner. I want to just reiterate that with making sure you have a cutoff date about when you're going to have students accepted. I know that since I started in August, I had a lot of seniors that were thinking, this is going to look great on my college application, but did not necessarily have the passion or the drive or the follow through. And that cutoff date really helped to ensure it was a filter in a way. If you were passionate and truly interested, you were going to make it on the date. And I had lots of students afterwards that asked, are you sure I still can't apply? And it was tempting because I only had 12 students, but I held true to that. So I see a question here about the club dues and the cost to students. Do you want to take that, Katherine?
Sure. And I have to look it up because CSTA, when they took over, they changed the fee structure, and there is a different cost for returning, I think, than new members. There's like an induction fee, and we charge $15 per student for the dues, for the annual dues, which is consistent with other honor societies. We initially thought we were going to get away with $10, but then there were some additional expenses that we had to pay to CSTA. Not a lot, but just enough to have us have to go with the $15 a year. But I do have to double check to see if our returning members have the same fee or what. And the teacher has to be a CSTA plus member, and that is, I think it's $50 a year. But you get that back on your CSTA conference registration. So I only paid $75 for this year.
And at my school, they heavily encourage teachers not to do dues for our clubs and to do fundraisers instead. So that was another thing that we did in August and September, which, the students aren't paying for the dues, but they're paying in time to create the fundraiser. And again, I put it in their court to decide what that fundraiser was going to look like, essentially.
And we are a private school, so students do pay tuition, but 40% of our students are on scholarship. So if anybody has a challenge with paying the dues, especially at a time like this, $15 could be the difference between lunch and not lunch. I do tell students to come and talk to me privately. Last year, the students wanted to order sweatshirts, which I forget how much they cost, but they weren't free. And I did say, if anybody has an issue with buying a sweatshirt and wants one, come and see me privately. And I think I had 3 students. I think it was 3. It might have been 2. And to be honest with you, there's a certain amount I'm just willing to pay. I'm just willing to pay out of my pocket. I'll write a check. But if it gets more, like if there were 10 students, then I would try to find additional sources of funding, which we have a very generous faculty. And when there's a need, sometimes we just put out a quiet call amongst the faculty and we get the money. We don't ever use the student's name, but we will we'll help them get covered if they need it.
And I have to say, so our club decided to do a crowdfunding fundraiser, and I can't remember the site. It's one that our district approves. It's like, it's not GoFundMe, one of those. But that was very successful. I think there's a lot of interest and passion in the wider world to really help computer science become more equitable. It's easy to kind of sell that. in some other, honestly. So we had one parent that was in the tech industry, so she kind of just spammed all her social media, and, all of those people, making good money in the IT world were very happy to, chip in $5 or $10 to make it happen for our students. So that's awesome. We have a question here. Would you have wished you had partnered with another teacher to divvy up the workload?
Yes, but there wasn't one available. And so it was up to, if I didn't do it, it wasn't going to happen. Luckily, this year, I was able to rope in my husband. So there's two of us, and we are co-moderators for this coming year. So we'll see how that goes.
This is Naomi, and I asked the question.
I was in the same.
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Brenda. Sorry.
Go ahead, Naomi.
Okay, I was just going
to say I was in the same boat as well. There wasn't another teacher, so you just full steam ahead.
Right, and I was just wondering, I know that you're
go ahead, Naomi.
Have you ever thought about partnering even with a public school, or bringing in one of your elders, as you mentioned, one of your wisest generation members to come in to help mentor, or already get the girls involved from the get-go, that one or two could actually be a lead coach with you?
Yeah, that's a great question, Naomi, and we do have ways that we involve people in the community. We have several different opportunities, and that's one of the reasons why I bring in guest speakers, because I think having that connection with someone beyond the walls, someone else who's passionate about computer science, is really helpful. We do have something called Tech Trek, and I partner with one of our parents who's in tech. He works for Cisco, and we help plan an event. The girls have to apply, and it's been, I don't know what it's going to look like this year, but it's been a bus tour. The girls apply, they have to write a paragraph about why they want to go on Tech Trek, just to make it, to have the kids have some skin in the game. And then we go to local tech companies. We went to Cisco, we went to Intel, we went to ASU's Decision Theater. This was this past year. In the past, we've gone to Axosoft and GoDaddy and other tech companies locally. So the students can see what a tech workplace looks like. And usually they will have someone give them a talk. They'll feed them, give them some swag, and it's a nice way to include community members. As far as getting someone to be like from the outside to be like a co-moderator of the club with me, we have so many regulations at our school involving volunteers that it would take a lot of work. And frankly, I think right now what we've got going is working, so I'm not going to pursue that at the moment.
Sure. Okay, well, thank you for the response.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if the best way to include somebody from the community would be to look at partnerships your school already has. And I know moving into the high school, that took some digging. There was a lot of partnerships that my district had already set up but we're not necessarily utilizing, that I'd like to utilize next year and sort of pulling those people in. So if anybody does want to do that, I would start there in sort of, because those agreements and that legal part's already been decided and figured out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. So Naomi also shared a great mentoring site in the chat pod. Serena, is there something, we got the question, what would be one thing that us as the sponsors would have done differently this last year? I'm wondering, from the student perspective, is there something that you saw that you would have, given experience now, the hindsight, what would you have done differently, I guess? Or what, not what you would have done differently, I'm sorry, what you wish had gone differently?
This is hard since it was our first year, but I would have liked to plan a little bit better. I mean, I'm a really big planner, but plan out each month at the beginning. So like in August or September, like one of our initial meetings, have a better view of the entire year. Again, we didn't know what direction our chapter was going to go in, so that's hard. But it would have been nice to like see it all laid out just so that we can help stay on track and make sure all the dates and everything are set at the beginning of the year. But other than that, I thought we ran our chapter very smoothly for the first year, which I'm very happy about.
Serena is a big planner, which we really benefited from. But I think that although some things didn't pan out, like the reaching out to the wiser generation, we didn't get that done and before school closed down. But it allowed us to be a little bit agile. So in our planning, I think it's important that we continue to allow some space for opportunities to present themselves. There's a question in the chat. Serena, would you be willing to share an outline of your year?
Yeah, so in August, again, is when we were inducted, and that's when I started being president, I guess. And then we had committee meetings once a month. We decided to do the first Tuesday of every month just to keep consistency. And then at every monthly meeting, we would talk about, we'd either plan if we had a general meeting coming up, or we'd talk about committees, make sure they were on track, just general stuff for the club. So in August was when we started that. September and October, again, just planning. October, like Ms. Wyman said, we had Cybersecurity Awareness Month, so we made sure that committee was on track. Again, we were more the moderators of the whole thing. Since we weren't in charge of each committee, so we kind of check in with the committees, but we left each member of the smaller committee in charge of that. And then we pretty much on each of our meetings, we just planned the general meetings, which again, Ms. Wyman said we had 4 times. We created slideshows for each one. And so that was pretty much throughout the whole year. At the beginning of the year, we looked through the rule book. We talked about how we kind of wanted to run our meetings. And then towards the end of the year, we started talking about next year, things that we could pass on to the next people, what we could have done differently and what we did well. But it stayed pretty consistent throughout the whole year, pretty much of what we were doing. I'm not sure if that answered your question, but that's pretty much what we did.
I love that, passing on the information to the next group of official